Hello, everybody, and welcome to Parent University. I'm Stephanie Heilig, the Parent University Administrator for Long Beach Unified, and I'm very happy to welcome all of you today. This is our, believe it or not, our first virtual workshop for the school year. We're trying a new format, so thank you all for joining us today. We're going to be looking at a video momentarily. But a couple of things for those of you that are tuning in. So it's a new format for us, so we're going to go through it. Here's the first thing. For those of you that are parents or those of you that are kids, I want you to take a deep, deep breath. So everybody breathe in and breathe out. So I know this is a stressful time. It can be. It's an exciting time. It's probably both. So I understand exactly where you're coming from. I'm a parent also. I have 2 high schoolers. So I've done middle school choice, I've done high school choice. I know exactly where you're coming from. So again, if you're excited and nervous, that's totally normal. So I want to thank you for tuning in today. First thing, what I'd like you to do is perhaps you can grab a paper, a pen, something to write on. I know you have questions. What I would like to invite you to do for the first part of our workshop is jot down your questions. Anything at all that you have on your brain, things you think or you hope will get answered. Now, what are we going to do with those questions? Well, hopefully, if I'm doing my job well, I can answer a lot of those questions during our presentation. If I can't answer the questions during the presentation, you can put them in the live chat. So they're all here. We'll be able to see it. We do have some people in the back that will monitor the chat. I will also answer as many questions as I can. Now, let's still say I don't get to your question either during the presentation or in our chat. You're going to see a link. Actually, it'll be an email address and a phone number so that you can call us and get in contact with us, especially if your question is really specific to your child. That's how we're going to want you to get a hold of us, is we can respond to the specific questions better and probably more accurately with a little bit more time. If you put those or call us or email us those questions. So grab a piece of paper, grab a pencil, write all those down. I've got a few more things to say as we get going today. So first of all, I do want to say we have a high school program and pathway for everyone. You're going to hear in the video, we have 11 high schools and almost 40 pathways to pick from. So I know you're nervous. I know you think it feels like we're going into college. You're not. It's high school. So you're going to be A-okay. Here's how we're going to kind of set things up for the evening. I'm going to do a little bit more talking. We're then going to watch a video with a person who looks oddly similar to me, presenting a little bit more in a formal way with some slides and some narration. So during that video, if I go over your questions, I want you to check off your question. No need to answer that one again or to ask it because I've already answered it. If there's anything that the video makes you think about, I want you to write those down too. So that'll be about 7 or 8 minutes. I should say also, for those of you that are tuning in Spanish and Khmer, you're going to see down below, there should be a link to both of those presentations. The slide deck has been translated for you. And then we have some interpreters with us today that will interpret that slide deck for you as we kind of go through step by step our process. Okay. Once the video is finished, we're all going to come back together. I'll be taking a look in the chat to see what kinds of questions we have, and I'll also be fed some questions from the back. So that'll be wonderful. I think that covers most everything. So again, you're jotting down those questions. Deep breath. I'd love, you know what we can do in the chat really quickly. If you are a parent, you can kind of give me a thumbs up. If you are a student, you can kind of give me a thumbs up too. We can see what's there. And I'll tell you what, if you're a parent or a student, why don't you type in the chat what school you currently attend? If you're not a Long Beach Unified student or resident, or right now if you're attending a different school, you can put that in the chat too. So we'll get started. I'll wait for you all to put those questions down there. I'm taking a look at our chat just to see what we have there. All right, I see thumbs up. I see some streams coming in. I'm taking a look here. I just wanted to see who's represented. Oh, we got some Stanford students. I see some thumbs up. I think it's mostly parents. Oh, Hoover, Marshall, Bancroft, Marshall, parents, Washington, IVA, welcome, IVA, right on. Cool. John Muir, Lindsay, Tincher, Rogers. This is cool. A lot of Bancroft and Marshall. Way to go. Westerly, fabulous. I'll see you next week, Westerly. Keller, St. Hedwig's, very good. Rogers, Nelson, lots of Marshall. There's Hughes. I was wondering when Hughes was going to show up in the building. Cool. Right on. Cubberley, K8, wonderful. Tincher. This is really helpful also to me, so I'll kind of know which questions to answer. Lakewood Christian, welcome. Rogers, Muir. All right, I'm going to let that keep going. You all put that in the chat. I think we're ready to kind of preview our video. Again, you're writing down our questions. We're going to pause for a moment. We'll watch our video, and I'll be right back with you in a couple of minutes. Hello, future graduating class of 2028. I am Stephanie Heilig, Administrator in the Equity, Engagement, and Partnerships Office with Long Beach Unified. It is hard to believe, but high school is right around the corner, and it's time to decide on your options for high school. This presentation is part one of a two-part workshop. Today's goal is to introduce you to the LBUSD high schools as you prepare and explore the pathway programs that will be the best fit for you. Long Beach has 11 high schools. 6 of these schools are comprehensive schools. Comprehensive high schools are traditional high schools. They are large and offer a full CIF sports program. The other 5 of our high schools are thematic schools. These schools are smaller and offer club sports and limited CIF sports. With the exception of a few pathway programs, comprehensive schools give residential priority to the 8th graders that live within the school boundaries. Thematic schools are 100% school of choice, meaning residential priority is not guaranteed even if you live across the street from the school. In LBUSD, 8th graders select a high school and a pathway program. You can select programs at one school or you can choose pathways at a variety of schools. All pathway programs will prepare graduates for college and careers no matter which high school or pathway you will attend. There are 2 categories of pathway programs: specialized programs and pathway programs. All of our specialized programs have minimum requirements, including a minimum GPA, SBAC or standardized test score, and or enrollment in Algebra 1. Most of our pathway programs do not have minimum requirements. First, we will focus on our specialized programs. Our specialized programs were previously called Small Learning Communities, or SLCs, and in some cases were the original pathway programs in the district. Specialized programs are designed to be rigorous, and for that reason, there are minimum requirements in order to be eligible. In the 4-year course of study for these programs, there is a minimum number of AP courses that are, in many cases, pre-selected. Students that meet the minimum entrance requirements are ranked from high to low GPA and then selected for the number of spots that are available. There is no residential priority for residents, with the exception of the CIC program. Let's focus now on our pathway programs. 6 of these pathways have minimum requirements, but as you can see, most do not. Pathway programs use a linked learning approach that integrates college entry coursework and career technical education. So what exactly is a pathway program? It is also a small learning community where students take courses connected to an industry theme. LBUSD's pathways are based on the major industry sectors in California. So how does it work? Students will take an elective class each year that teaches industry content and skills and soft skills or essential skills, such as public speaking or collaborating with a group. The general courses, such as English and science, are also taken, but will incorporate the industry theme into course content and lessons. The result is that it makes learning relevant. It should be noted that AP courses are optional in a pathway program, but students can choose to take one or more AP courses in a pathway program. Let's put it all together. All high school students will take courses that will prepare them for college and careers, whether they are in specialized programs or pathway programs. Upon graduation, some graduates will pick a college major directly similar to the pathway industry area. Some will pick an unrelated major, while others will enter the workforce. Specialized programs and pathway programs are designed to give students the essential skills needed to be successful in life. Your exploration journey begins at our high school choice fair, Saturday, November 4th, from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. at Cabrillo High School. Speak with staff and students about each of our pathway programs. All 11 LBUSD high schools will be available to answer questions. In January and early February, each of our high schools will host a site visit on their campus. You can get a feel for the school and the school culture as you visit classrooms and meet more of the school staff and students. You can attend all of the site visits or choose the schools that offer a pathway program option that is suitable for you. The site visit schedule is posted on our website, but here is a sneak peek at the dates and times of the high school visits. Our website will link the site visit agendas for your convenience. Make sure to mark your calendars. To find out more about the school choice process, access resources, and see a complete list of events, visit our website at www.lbschools.net. Click on the Families tab and then the School Choice tab, followed by the High School Choice tab. Here are some next steps for families. Please ensure that your home address information is correct. Contact your middle school office with any changes. Please plan to attend our high school information events as you begin to explore our pathway programs. And finally, don't forget to check our website for the latest information. The School Choice Office will have a table at each of the high school choice events to answer any questions that you may have. However, you can contact us at the following number and email address. Thank you for joining us. We can't wait to see you, future class of 2028. Hi, everybody. We're back. I recognize that person in that video. You probably do too. That was probably the quickest, probably slide deck that we'll have in a while. And I know it was jam-packed with information. So we're going to let it digest. Please know that the slide deck that you saw will be posted on our website so that you can view it afterward. After we're done, you can view it at your leisure. Probably a little bit easier to really let all the information soak in. I've been taking a look at our chat. I want you to kind of go over the list of questions that you have. There's a couple of questions I think that we can answer or that I can answer for you. Before we do, here's something I want you to do. If you have a computer open or if you have your phone, there's a lot of resources that you can find on our website. So before I get going with the chat, I'm going to invite you to go to www.lbschools.net. Once you've gone on there, if you go to the top, I believe it's the right-hand corner, there's 3 lines if you're on a phone, or it says main menu if you're on a laptop. And if you click on that, you remember from the video, they told you where to go. So if you go under the Families tab, you can find the School Choice tab. You'll open that, and then you'll get to our main School Choice page, and then you're going to open the page for High School Choice. So I say that because as I'm answering in the chat, that's going to be the place where you can get a lot of your questions answered. Okay. All right. So we're going to take a look at our chat here. We do have a couple of questions about which programs are the most competitive. My answer, and I'm not trying to be political, but honestly, it depends year after year. We have no way of knowing each year how many students apply. So year after year, there's a few of them that are, we call them impacted, because we have more applicants than there are spaces for. So if you're coming to our choice fair on Saturday, we can give you that information. I won't get too much into it on this presentation, but again, it depends on how many students are coming in year after year. Other programs kind of come and go off that top list, if you will. But again, it depends on the eighth graders. It depends on all of you and where you apply. So Saturday, we can give you some information. You can also email or call us and we can get some information there. So let me kind of go down, and I don't know if my folks in the back, my friends, oh, I did have another question. They said, if we're here, should we also go on Saturday to the choice fair? I'll tell you why that's a really great idea. Number one, all 11 schools will be there in person. That's the first thing. So it's kind of a one-stop shop. The second reason why Saturday is a really good idea is you're going to have staff, but the main reason is you're going to have students. So those of you that are tuning in that are a student, you're going to go and actually talk to kids not too far from your age that can tell you exactly what it's like to go to school there. So these are student representatives from the school. And I think year after year when we've done our choice fair, we've heard from a lot of people. That's like the best part about going to the choice fair. Plus you have all 11 schools. So when you go, you can then kind of narrow down your choices. You can either visit all 11 schools at the choice fair and then narrow it down, or some of you already have a really big idea about where you want to attend. You can go directly to those schools and then get some more information. So I would, if you can come, I would strongly encourage you to come. It's obviously optional, but I think it's a really great idea. All right, so let's see here. Let's start in the back with my friends that are monitoring the chat, because I didn't look. I think you all have some questions for me. When's the deadline? Okay, so let's backtrack first. There's two different deadlines. If you're a current Long Beach student, you don't have to register at all. You're already in. So the application's going to open in February and it will close shortly after that. I believe I want to say it's like March 1st. I am at a loss, believe it or not, but I think that's the deadline. If you are in private school right now, or you are in a non-public school and you're a Long Beach resident, there's a couple of things that you need to do first. You will need to enroll and do some pre-enrollment questions and upload some documents. Right now, you're enrolled in another school district. You can finish the year at that school, but we have to enroll you and get you enrolled for freshman year. Once you're enrolled, then you'll be transferred over to the School of Choice queue, where you'll kind of sit in that queue, and then you'll be able to complete the application. So for private school folks, and for a lot of you, I know I'm going to be visiting your schools, and so I'll be talking to you about that. But we can get into detail in some of those meetings. You can also call our office. So the deadline, there's no deadlines now. We start early to give you a lot of time to get your information. But the high school application will open in February. I believe it's February 20th. Okay. Do we have any other questions? I know there's lots in the chat. We're going to go through a lot of this. Sure. So we're getting a question that people are asking, if they can't go to the choice fair, can they just go to the site night, or vice versa? If they can only go to the site nights, do they have to go to the choice fair? So the simple answer to that is we will welcome you to all, or as many or as little as possible. Some eighth graders right now already know where they're going to go to school. They already have their mind made up. That's great. So you don't have to attend any of those activities. You can, but it certainly isn't necessary. You can just come Saturday to the choice fair. You can just come to the site nights. You can do both. So what we will do for our site nights, they're a little bit farther off. They'll be in January after the holidays. We're going to be posting the agenda and some special instructions from each of the schools to our website. So if you're online right now and you're taking a look at our website, if you scroll down and you can kind of see that accordion, I believe it says Explore, it's on our timeline. You can see all the dates for those high schools. We're going to be linking their agenda at that time there. So you can kind of make your plans. Some of our high schools like to do a evening event that's kind of 2 hours long. Other high schools, it's more of an open house. You can drop in when you can. So it just depends on the individual school. I will say that at our choice fair on Saturday, a lot of the schools will be able to give you their plan, and they'll be able to tell you when their site night is. They probably have a flyer for you. So it's just a really good way to get started. But again, we know that you're busy. You're eighth graders. If you're as busy as my kids were, you've got a lot of stuff going on. Parents, I'm sure you've got a lot of stuff going on too, because you're shuttling kids back and forth. But again, come to as many or as little as you can as that you are able. It's completely up to you. But all of the information that you can find will be included on our website as well. Okay. All right. So go ahead. People in the back, I'll keep going. That's okay. Sounds good. That is a really good question. Does meeting the minimum requirements guarantee that you'll get into the program? The answer is no. The minimum requirements is like a gateway. In order to qualify, you have to meet the minimum requirements. Certainly, if you're above those minimum requirements, there's a little bit higher of a chance that you'll be able to get in. I'm going to give you an example. Some of our pathways have a 3.7 GPA as the minimum. Now, if you're a 4.0 student, and then you have a better chance of getting in than somebody with a 3.7, because those pathways may rank you high to low GPA. So certainly having a higher GPA is better. But just because you have that GPA doesn't mean you're automatically guaranteed in. It really all depends on how many other students are also applying to that pathway. I'll give you an example. This year, for a couple of our pathways, the minimum was a 3.7, but we actually ended up cutting off at 3.73 because there were more students that applied than there were spaces for. So sometimes that threshold does move up. So I certainly would say, same thing if you're a 3.0 GPA student as well. So I would certainly say if you're on kind of right at that cutoff or that threshold, it might be a wise decision to have a second choice of a pathway, because there is a chance that you may not get accepted into that pathway. Again, we do not know year after year what that will be. It all depends on how many students do apply, but that's a really, really great question, and I'm glad we were able to tackle that. I think we have a couple more in the chat from our back room, and then I'll try to go through our live chat here. Sounds good. Okay, that's a great question. So in the chat, and we have a question regarding Algebra 1. So the question is, do you have to pass Algebra 1 in order to be accepted into the course? So let's talk about Algebra 1. The reason why Algebra 1 is a requirement for a lot of our pathways, where it is a requirement, is they really want you to be proficient in math. So the short answer is, you could have a not passing grade like a D or an F in algebra. You could still qualify for that pathway. They're not going to take a look at the specific grade. However, I'm going to encourage you to think about Algebra 1. If you find Algebra 1 to be really, really challenging, you may not want to apply to a pathway that requires algebra. The reason why is immediately your freshman year, you're going to take geometry if you've already taken algebra. Then your sophomore year, you jump into Algebra 2. There really isn't time to support a student who didn't do well or who struggled in Algebra 1. So that's something to really think about. Now, we know, and I know, maybe you're having kind of a rough semester. I get that. You have to know yourself best, and you have to know how you learn. So if algebra is tricky for you, that's really something to think about. But again, know yourself best. But those programs that algebra is required, many of them are connected to engineering, or they're kind of an accelerated type of a pathway where they're really going to assume that you've got it and they're going to move quickly and they're really going to dig deep. So that's something you have to think about with yourself, especially with algebra. So that's the long or the short story of it. If you have specific questions on algebra, I'll be at the Choice Fair Saturday. Certainly we can chat about it, or you can call or email our office and we can take care of that for you too. Okay. Okay. That is a great question. So if you are a student with an IEP, all high schools are equipped to handle students with IEPs. However, it depends on what is specified in your IEP. So for that particular question, if you are a student and you're online, you can go under the additional resources. There's actually a link to our special ed programs. So you may want to click on the English brochure. You'll get a separate screen pop up and you'll be able to see which high schools offer those programs. So our students with IEPs go through school choice just like everybody else. You are certainly allowed to select pathways. However, depending on the stipulations on your IEP, you may be choosing a school or a pathway that doesn't have what you need. So if that's the case, you're welcome. We will place you there, but just understand that transportation cannot be provided for that. So I would check with your case carrier in your 8th grade class or a school just to determine what they have. So they'll be able to help you a little bit with that. And that sounds maybe a little specific. We can take a look at it together and I can kind of let you know what might be some options for you. But again, the case carrier at your school should be able to tackle that question for you. Okay. All right. I do see one in the chat about visiting schools during the school day, so we'll tackle that a little bit. We used to, many years ago, have something called shadow days. We've unfortunately moved away from that. It's a little bit disruptive to the high school, but also to the 8th grade classes that are there. I know because I taught middle school at that time, and that means that a lot of the middle schoolers are missing class, and then they're on a high school campus, and the high schools are giving tests, so to shadow during the day is difficult. I will say this, if you can't make it to a site night, and by the way, they do a really great job of getting you to feel the culture of the school. If you can't come on Saturdays to our choice fair, what I would encourage you to do, certainly, especially if you're in 6th and 7th grade, certainly take the time to attend lots of events. So if there is a sporting event coming up and you want to go take a look, by all means, go and attend that event. If there's a musical concert or a program, certainly you can do that. I mean, take some time, especially you 6th and 7th graders, take some time to really go and visit those schools. You can drive by the school during the day on the weekend to see what it looks like. If it happens to be opening and they're hosting an event, you could certainly go on there. But I know it is tricky. I think the schools have done a really good job on the videos that are on the websites to really give you a view or kind of a snapshot into what school is like. But it is difficult to go during the day, and that's really the reason why we've moved away from that slightly. Let's see here. So some people are asking, let's see, will students know when they're accepted? So the way that will work, and by the way, we're going to do a part 2 of high school choice. We'll do it in January. So a lot of those questions will be tackled then. But basically, we take some time. The system will make placements. Those will be posted into Parent View. So the same place you'll go to access, which we'll go over in part 2, is where you're going to find where the placement will be. So that's where all of that is placed. I will say this, and I think it's very important now to make sure that your address in Parent View is currently up to date. Here's why. The address that's in Parent View will let you know what your residential high school is. So you will get residential priority at that school if you pick a pathway or a program at that school of residence. For example, if you live in the Cabrillo area and you're picking a Cabrillo pathway first, you will get priority because you live there. Pauley, same thing. If you live in the Pauley neighborhood and you're picking a Pauley pathway first, you will get priority. The only exceptions to that would be any of our GPA gated pathways that list that residential priority is not an option. And there are a few of those. So that one you wouldn't. And then the other exception to that would be with our thematic schools. So those smaller schools, you could live across the street and that still wouldn't be your school of residence. So the school of residence applies to those big 6 high schools. That's where that applies to. Otherwise, if you're picking a residential school, your second, third, or fourth choice, and you've put another school first choice, you wouldn't get priority for that. So we're going to tackle a lot of those types of questions in part 2, which will be January of this. Today is really focused on how do I figure out what pathway is right for me? So good question. And I think the back's going to ask me too, can kids change pathways during the school year? The short answer is not really. It's very difficult. Here's why. When we do placement, there's a certain number of spaces available at the schools for every single kid that's in our district. It isn't like in college where you can apply to 2 or 3 and you're going to get accepted to all of them. You're going to get accepted to 1 because we're making room and space for all of the other schools for all the other students. So to switch a pathway, it can happen during your freshman year. So once we place students, we kind of shut everything down. The high schools build their master schedule. School starts. So there is a little bit of a window sometimes for changes, but that goes through our secondary schools office. And then if that is, and again, it's based on space availability. So oftentimes a lot of our pathways, they're full. We simply can't put anybody and move anyone where there are no spaces available. After school starts, there is an opportunity. Let's say you go into a pathway and you're like, I don't know about this. This doesn't seem like it's a fit for me. If that's the case, then what you can do during the spring of your freshman year, there will be an opportunity to apply again for a school of choice. So the secondary schools office takes those applications, they take a look, and it's all based on space availability. So it's much easier to switch at your own school where you are rather than going from school to school. So after we place, we only do the 8th to 9th grade. That really goes through our secondary office. Now, I say that, and I know it's difficult for a lot of you because you're thinking, oh my gosh, there's a lot of pressure. How am I going to know which one to pick? Here's what I'll say. I think what you have to think about is a pathway is kind of like an ice cream flavor, right? It's not a forever thing, but it's something you might be interested in. You might find this interesting. Fun fact, last night at the board meeting, there was, and I have forgotten her name, I should have written it down. She goes to Renaissance, which is our school for the arts. She was speaking on behalf of Renaissance. Our Mrs. Craighead, our board president, asked her, where are you going to go to college? What are your plans after high school? She's going to enter, I believe it was biomedical at Cal State Long Beach. So you've got an arts student who's now deciding to go into some kind of a medical biology type of career, or at least coursework at Cal State Long Beach. So it just goes to show you that if you're in a pathway and you're not like loving it, that's okay. Sometimes it's good to know what you don't like so that when you get to college, you can think about what you for sure want to stay away from and what you may be interested in. Some kids don't think about careers until afterward when they're in college, and then you've taken a bunch of classes that now you aren't really counting. So all of our pathway programs, you're going to take an elective, and I want you to think about the skills that you're going to learn. So you're going to learn about being a good public speaker. You're going to learn about working together in groups. You're going to learn, technology, even if you're not in a tech pathway. So those are the things to think about, even when you're going on Saturday and when you're talking to some of those schools. Those are really good questions, I think, to pose and to ask them for sure. Let's see here. Gotcha. That's a great question. So our out of district students, so if Long Beach is not your residential school district, couple things you'll have to do. You're going to have to go to your residential district wherever you are. So it could be Compton Unified, Bellflower, and Downey. You have to get what's called an IDP. It's an interdistrict permit. That school district has to release you from their district, And then after we're finished with our school of choice process in April, I believe it's April 8th, you can then submit that interdistrict permit to our school district and we'll consider you for any available pathways. So understand too, many of our pathways by that time will be full. We have a lot of students that are there. So you'll be able to select from the available pathways. We don't know now what those will be. We have to wait till all that placement occurs. But there are no additional requirements in terms of GPA or grades. All of those will kind of remain the same. But the one thing you'll have to do is to get that interdistrict permit. I think that answers that question. Okay. We have a question about AP at Keller. We can talk about that specifically on Saturday. That's a little bit more specific. We can email you. So I'd love for you to put that in there because we can kind of spread the word or the love to Keller. Oh, this is a good one. Can we apply at multiple schools? Yes, you can. So I will say this. When you go to make your selections, all of your selections do not have to be at the same school. So remember, you're not only thinking about a high school, you're thinking about the pathway. If you want to go to Lakewood High School, for example, your first selection will have to be at the school wherever is your school of residence. But then if Lakewood is your choice, you're going to put Lakewood first, second, and a third choice, picking a different program each time. So you can put them all at the same school. If Lakewood is your residential school, you want to go there, you can put all of those down. So I would say if you really want to get into a school, regardless of the pathway, certainly put that down as kind of your top 3 choices. It doesn't guarantee anything, but it's certainly the way that the placement will work is we'll start with your first choice, then we'll go to your second choice, and then your third choice will be selected. So before we have to go to the 4th choice, which is more of like a forced choice, we'll go through in order. So hopefully if you don't get it in the first round, you can get it in the second round. So that feels pretty important to point that out. Let's see here. All right. Some people have said requirements that are on the slide deck are not meeting the school site. I would contact the school site specifically. I do know that we're working with that. So our slide deck is pretty current, up to date. But I know that some of those schools are still working on some of their information. You can certainly ask on Saturday, but we'll work on making sure those, I'm making a note of that. I'll make sure I follow up with the high schools to make sure that those are there. Let's see here. I think we've talked about IE's pipe. I'm trying to look for real general questions. I know a lot of them are specific, so I don't want to get too much in there. People in the back, my friends, do you guys see any others that are specific or that I can answer? Wonderful. Okay. That's a good question. So, and I'm a shameless plug here. On Tuesday evening, we're doing another one of these parent universities where we'll talk about A through G. So I don't want to spoil it, but if you don't know what A through G is, I want you to tune in on Tuesday. All of our pathways will meet our A through G requirements. And I think it's a great idea if you're an 8th grader to come Tuesday so you can begin to kind of think about what is A through G and how will that be used during my high school career. It's important for you to know that, especially those of you thinking about going to Cal State's, UC's, or a 4-year university. So we'll go through that on Tuesday, but all of our pathways do meet the A through G requirements. So those are there. Okay. Let's see here. School of Residence. Let's see here. There's a question about, do we have to make 3 selections and 3 choices? You don't. If you know where you want to go and you want to pick that as your first selection, and that's your pathway program, and that's your school of residence, you can make 1 selection. You can make 2 selections. So the first selection when you go on will have to be your school of residence, and it will have to be a program that doesn't have any GPA connection or any prerequisites or minimum requirements. We call that our default pathway. So if you were to fall out of all of your choices, that would be where you are placed. So oftentimes, I think it's very rare that we see a student with just one selection. Often we'll see two. A student will leave that one and then they'll pick the second one. They'll re-rank their choices. So oftentimes we do see two. That's rare. Most everybody will make four selections. Some will make three. So I think it's important to note here that when you select a program, if it's on that list, it is something we want to consider for you. So you are telling us this is an option for me. So make sure that you really think about what those selections will be. And we'll talk about it during the next Parent University, but you can make changes to that application. You don't have to fill out the right away. It isn't a first come, first serve application. So you have kind of a window when you need to kind of figure that out. So that's important. I would say the biggest thing, especially when you're thinking about choice fair, and I tell students this with the site nights and choice fair, I want you to think about really where you can see yourself and where you feel comfortable. I can tell a little bit of a story here while I wait for some questions to come in. Both of my children have been through the process. My daughter was deciding between two schools and she wasn't sure. So the school that was kind of in the running, we went to that site night and she kind of took it all in and she said, I'm not really sure if this is a fit. So that was her first selection, at least I thought. And then we went to the other site night and she said, you know what? I see myself here. So I think a lot of times it's a feel. And that's why I think going on those campuses for those site visits is important. You 6th and 7th graders, if you can get to some of those events beforehand while you're in 6th and 7th grade, that's fantastic because often it's a feel. In the case of my son, he just kind of said, I'm not sure what pathway I'm going to pick. I'll pick this one because it just sounds interesting. I think it'll make me a better human being. So he didn't pick it. Neither child picked it because of the industry sector. I think it's rare for an 8th grader to know what they want to do as a career, although some do, and more power to you. That's awesome. I think I changed my major a couple of times in college. I bet I have some parents laughing right now going, yep, that was me. It's hard to know. So I want you to think about not only the pathway program that you're going in, but the school too. For those of you coming to the choice fair on Saturday, I think we're going to give out a set of questions that will help guide you through that. But you've got to think, do I want a small school or do I want a large school? That's an important question to think about. Do I really want to be surrounded by peers that are, really high achieving? Or do I want something that might be a little bit easier where it's a sort of a choose your own adventure as to how many AP courses I want to take? And those are questions that you can ask on Saturday of the students that are there, but also of the staff representatives that are there. So those are good questions to ask. Something else to consider. If you want to attend a school that's not your school of residence, do you have transportation there? Do you know how to get there? Those of you that are right now in 8th grade at a school of choice, if you're taking the bus every day and that's working for you, fantastic. But if it's not, and that's a struggle, with high school, there are a lot of things to get involved in. There's band, there's color guard, there's sports, there's clubs. Sometimes those require you to come outside of school hours. How easy is it going to be to get to and from that school? So that's something you want to think about. If you mark a school down first, and I should say this, 88% of our students last year got their first choice selection. And then after that happens, if you want to change, it's going to be difficult to change that first choice selection because we gave you what you wanted. There has to be room in order to get another selection. So we had a number of students that got their selection and then they said, oh, psych, just kidding. I want to go back to my school. And that was really difficult because when you don't choose your school of residence, that spot is kind of reserved or there's somebody else is now slated to take your spot at that school of residence. So that gets really tricky. It's really important to think about that and to consider all of these things before you make that selection, because what we're going to do, we're going to try and get you that number one selection that feels good for us. You're letting us know that's where you want to go. The system's going to try to put you in that first choice selection. So I really want you to be intentional about not only the school, but also the pathway that you're in. So really think about that and do some homework on that one. Ah, good question. So let's talk about how we place. If you don't get your first choice, the system will immediately go to your second choice. If you don't get your second choice, the system will go to your third choice. And when I say goes to it, there has to be room in that pathway. Many of our popular pathway programs will fill with first choice selections. So when you're filling that out, if you get to it and it says this might be an impacted pathway, chances are if you don't put it first choice, you won't get it second choice, you won't get it third choice, and then you have to be relegated to go to your fourth choice. So what happens if you're at your fourth choice and that's not something you want to be? There is an appeal process that will be attached after we place everybody. Then it's sort of we take a second look. Number one, there has to be room in that pathway. So if you're appealing, even if it's your school of residence, you didn't get it, there has to be room in that pathway. So we can't place anybody unless there's space. Number two, we'll take you if there's a sibling. So if you have a sibling and we weren't able to put your siblings together, we'll try to honor those. We will try to honor school of residence. So I fill out a first choice. It wasn't my school of residence. And then as I move on, I realize I'm not going to be able to get to that first choice selection. Let me go back to my school of residence. There has to be room there. Some of our schools are really impacted, Poly being one of those. So if Poly is your residential school and you want to go there, you'll need to make sure that you mark that as your first choice. So it's really hard to get students back to Poly if you're deciding to go to another school. So there does have to be room. And then the third option for our appeals process is a GPA and SBAC hardship. Give you an example. Oh, I really wanted to get into a program. I had a 3.6. I didn't quite qualify. You could fill out our appeal process. Then we would go in and say, okay, let's take a look and see, A, is there room? But B, if there is room, how close did you really get? And then we really try to call the high school. And again, we're trying to get you into a pathway of your choice, of your selection. So if you're close or you feel you're coming from private school, you don't have an SBAC score, you didn't take it, or STAR test. We had a few of those cases, but your GPA is really, really high. That's in the case where you'd want to fill out an appeal. Again, with all of these, after everybody's placed, there has to be space available. So we did last year, we approved about half of the appeals that came in, but certain schools, it was obviously much harder because that school was already impacted. But we do try as much as we can to honor those appeals. So I will say this, 88% of students last year got their first choice, and we only, a lot more got their second choice, like I think it was 4% or so, maybe 5%. I can't remember the exact numbers. So very few students had to be relegated to their fourth choice. So that doesn't also include the appeals that we were able to approve. So I would probably guess that our rate is probably closer to about 89%, maybe 90% from last year. I think that answers that question. A lot of these are pretty specific. So we have specific ones for schools. We can answer those on Saturday. I'm going to wait, or you can go actually to the school itself to answer those. We really want to take very general ones. We did have a question about an IEP. I do believe I did tackle the IEP question, but if it's a specific one for your student, I would really encourage you to email our office. Let's backtrack. First, I would love for you to contact the case carrier at your school, but if they can't answer that, we certainly can. We don't typically do the placements for students with IEPs. The special education office will place them, and then we try to honor the placement. We'll find the pathway for them. I will be presenting, I know, at one of the special education parent meetings, and so I can certainly try to address those specific questions at that time. It'll be difficult for me. We have about 400 or so viewers, and that's difficult to get into specifics on this one, but I can get to that. All right. That's a great question. So let's backtrack. One of our schools, CAMS, which is California Academy of Math and Science, is on the Cal State Dominguez campus. For that particular program, you need to have the SBAC score. Here's why. They use what we call a STEM index. STEM is a combination of your GPA and your STAR score or your SBAC score. If that's not something that you have coming from a private school or you're coming from out of state, you can still put CAMS down as your number one choice. However, your STEM ranking will be lower because it will be without that SBAC score. For all of our other programs, the SBAC score really is the minimum requirement. There wouldn't be a cutoff due to SBAC. It would be a cutoff due to GPA. In the case of a tie, and we have never had this happen, but in the case of a tie, let's say two students have the same GPA, we would take a look at your ELA, or English Language Arts SBAC score, to determine whose score was higher in that case to admit those students into that particular program. So the SBAC score is important just as a minimum threshold, but it's really the GPA that will be ranked higher to lower. We will only consider SBAC in the case of a tie. That is a good question. I can't believe I didn't get that one earlier. Excellent question. For your GPA, it's going to be your academic GPA. So here's what we do not count. We do not count PE. We would not count non-academic electives. For those of you coming from private school, religion is not a score we would count inside of our program. Handwriting would not be something that we would consider. So we'll take your core classes. For those of you that are currently in Long Beach Unified, you can talk to your counselor about what your GPA is. I know you can log on to Parent View and some of the resources that are there. You can actually predetermine at least your GPA now. We're going to use all of 6th grade, all of 7th grade, and then the fall semester of 8th grade. So for all of you 8th graders out there, you think, oh, 8th grade doesn't count. It does. The fall semester does count. And it's really important. And that, for a lot of you, can kind of boost your GPA either up or down, depending on, how you do this year. So it's really important for you to stay focused between now. I know first quarter just ended yesterday. You've got another quarter to really work on those grades and get that GPA higher. That 8th grade fall semester will be automatically counted. For those of you coming in from private schools, your GPA will be assessed. Once all of your transcripts are submitted to us, we'll take a look at those and then we'll calculate it. And then when you go to fill out the application, all of that information, there's a toolbar on the top. All of that information will be there on the top of the application when you go to fill that out. Okay. All right. And by the way, I should add, a lot of you are tuning in, but if you're good, you can dip out. I'm sure you've got some dinner to make or, some homework to do. Dishes to wash. That's for you kids. The dishes are for you to do. I'm sure that'll help out mom and dad a lot. But please feel free. I'm going to stay on and keep answering questions. But if you feel you've got your questions answered, I'm going to see you on Saturday. But I'm going to keep answering questions for about 8 more minutes. So keep them coming. We'll do as many as we can. Good question. So if you go down to on our homepage, if you go, there's like a big picture on our homepage, and down below there's some icons. If you click on enrollment, there's an enrollment button, like an icon. You'll pop up to a screen, and then there's a button on there that says Find My Home School of Residence or Find My School of Residence. If you click on that button, you can type in your address. It's going to tell you what your elementary, middle, and high school of residence is. If you're typing in your address and it comes up as an error message, I would either give us a call, we can take a look, or that error message could be you don't actually live within the Long Beach Unified School boundaries. So that's a really good way to figure out what your school of residence is. For those of you coming from private schools, that's important because that middle school has the enrollment clerks. They're going to help you with all of the uploading of your documents and such. So it's important to know what that school is. If those directions are not clear to you, give us a call on our helpline or email us, and we can give you some of that information. We'll start answering those tonight into tomorrow. We imagine that they'll be pretty full. Our mailbox will be full of some of those questions there. Yes, so the application's going to open February 20th, okay? And I think you have until, I believe it's March 1st to select, to complete that application and turn that in. It'll be processed. And I believe it's March, I'm forgetting. Maybe it's March 20th. It could be March 20th. In my head, I should have all that written down, but it's on our website. So that's when all of the placements will be posted. So I encourage you to go on and take a look there. Also, I did want to mention that on our homepage, as you're scrolling down, again, a lot of our resources are there. For those of you that are looking on searching for, I can't make it Saturday, I can't go to the site nights. So it'll say Explore Pathways, and then there's an accordion. You can search by school, you can search by pathway. Clicking there will get you straight to that, to the school website, and then you can take a look there at the requirements for each of those programs. There's some really good information, some videos that are created to kind of give you a feel about the pathway. You can take a look at a sample schedule, some of those course requirements. And I would say, honestly, if you can come Saturday, that's really the best way to get the information, as a lot of the staff there will be able to go over that information with you. Doesn't matter just by the deadline, so there is no first come, first serve. That's a great question. Yeah. I know there's one on the class offerings. I think I answered that one there. We did have a question. I saw a few on sports. Sports is, we do the placements. I would certainly say for sports, you can go to, on Saturday, you can contact the specific school. That is something that you should really think about if you are going to play a sport. You know, you're going to have a full course load. Some students can really handle that. They thrive. I've known a lot of them. Other students, you know, that can be difficult for them. So, you know, it depends on you. And this is where you really have to think about you and what you know best about you. So if you're a kid that's really good at time management, you can handle that. You can still take sports and be in some of our most rigorous pathways. A lot of our top-notch athletes are in those really rigorous pathways. Other people, that's just not something that, you know, they're able to handle. This is where, you know, you've got to think about you best. So I think it's important to think middle school is, I know now how I learn, and I feel like I know myself. In high school, you're really building that future self for you. So you're thinking about what piques my interest, what do I want to be, what do I think I'm at least interested in, so I can get a feel for, you know, maybe something is, it's really going to make high school more relevant for you. So that's something to think about too. Let's see here. Yes. So Tuesday, we're doing another one of these. It's going to be a virtual parent university on what is A through G. So that's really important. If you're going to be a high school kiddo, or if you're a parent that wants to know about A through G, you've heard about it, that would be a really great one to tune into. We're going to have Dr. Kimberly Johnson. She's from our secondary schools office. Her video will be showing you. You'll have me on there again, but we'll be talking a little bit more about what is A through G. How can you get those requirements? That's something that feels really important. I also should mention that on our Parent University page, we're going to slowly be putting up some of our pre-recorded sessions. This one here will be posted. The slide deck will be posted as well for you all to refer to, but we'll also put that on there. So we're kind of building up a library of information for all of you as we kind of go through, because we know, you know, not everybody's on here from today. You know, we had about, I think we were up to 400, a little over 400 for today, but I know many of you are going to want to watch this and tune into it later. So, you know, you can check both of those websites for that information. All right. Okay. Let's see here. Somebody said, is choosing a pathway a requirement? All of our 8th graders in our district, 100% of students have to pick a pathway or a program and a high school. So we are a 100% school of choice district. So you can certainly pick them all at the same high school. You can change them up too. But some students really say, I want to go to that school. What are the pathways that are there? Other students say, I'm interested in technology. What are the schools that offer technology? And so then you can search by what we call industry sector. So it just depends on you and what you prefer, and, you know, what will be the right fit for you. Okay. All right. I think we have about 1 more minute. So I just want to say this. I appreciate your time as we're kind of wrapping it up. Thank you. There's lots of other things I know you could be doing, but the fact that you took about an hour out of your time to join us is much appreciated. Please send us an email or go on our helpline to ask some questions. Either myself or one member of our staff will get back to you. We look forward to seeing you all on Saturday. Come by and see our booth. We'll be right by the entrance gate. We can't wait to greet you, class of 2028. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful evening. Good night. Thank you.